So we averted disaster in the Jockey Club Gold Cup on Saturday at Saratoga. And yeah, like so many of these things, like, it was a little bit ugly, but it could have been way worse. Like I think of Maximum Security in the Derby when he could have taken out 7, 8, 10 horses, and that would have been the end of racing as we know it. This wouldn't have been, there's not many eyes in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, but this could have been so much worse. And thankfully everybody is okay and safe and healthy and sound coming out of the race. If you haven't seen it, major bumping in the first 16th of a mile in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. Kendrick Carmouche on Phileas Fogg, or on the outside, kind of rammed into Contrary Thinking, who was the rabbit for Sierra Leone. Contrary Thinking came in. White Abarrio got bumped. White Abarrio then bumped Mindframe, and Irad Ortiz Jr. ultimately fell off of Mindframe and came very close to getting trampled by Sierra Leone. And thank God he didn't. And he actually was cleared to ride on Monday, but took off all of his mounts for precautionary reasons. And if you watch the video, it's unbelievable to watch, especially from like the drone angle. Yeah. Where Irad gets bumped off of the horse. He basically gets bumped onto White Abarrio, where White Abarrio had like 2 jockeys on his back for a split second. And then Irad tries to get back on of Mindframe and ultimately can't do it, and then drops to the ground and takes a tumble. And then thankfully Sierra Leone mostly went over him, might have nicked him a little bit. But this was one of those scenarios where it was super scary, and there was so many angles to break down. Some people were talking about, should this have been a no contest race because there were so many horses that were affected? People were trying to make excuses for Sierra Leone. To me, he was the least affected out of any horse. Like basically he kind of had to veer out just a little bit after the start. Pretty much everybody else took the worst of it other than him. So I don't buy that for a second. Antiquarian, by the way, ended up winning the race at about 13-1. To me, this was mostly the fault of Kendrick Carmouche. And I like Kendrick a lot, and I think he's a good guy and a good rider. But if you watch the head-on of the race, he yanks the left rein of Phileas Fogg pretty sharply. And it seemed like what happened was the rabbit, Contrary Thinking, broke a step slowly, and then Kendrick tries to take his spot. Yeah. Which to me is like, first of all, it's dangerous to begin with, to yank the left rein like that, to try to cut off anybody, but especially the rabbit. Like, did he think that if he went over in front of Contrary Thinking, Dylan Davis on Contrary Thinking was going to take back and be like, "I'll forget it. I guess I can't go to the lead." No, he was going to go right around Phileas Fogg and go to the front anyway. So I just don't understand the thinking behind that move, that you're going to beat the rabbit to the lead because he broke a step slowly. The horse is in the race for one purpose, and that's to get to the lead. Unless the jockey falls off, it doesn't matter. He's going to be on the front end. Right. So I don't want to ascribe any nefarious intentions to Kendrick, because like I said, I think he's a good dude. I think he just he lost his mind a little bit in terms of being aggressive and race riding and forgetting that, listen, this horse is going to the front no matter what. I just got to ride my horse. That's to me what caused this the most. People are blaming Dylan Davis as well. I don't think he did quite as much. Maybe he overreacted a little bit. And if he was on another horse that was actually trying to win the race, he would have just taken back out of there and we would have avoided all of this. But to me, it was all started by Kendrick Carmouche.
And Joe, you're right that there was a lot to unpack in that race. Number one, it was a grade 1 race, at the very tail end of a really wonderful Saratoga meet overall. And the horse that won, was it the one that everyone anticipated? No, the horse was 13-1 for a reason. Did he deserve to win? Yeah, he deserved to win the way that race was ended up playing out. And you and I have spoken, on and off the air a lot about Sierra Leone. And this was a race actually that set up perfectly for him, albeit except for the fact that he had to leap over, or go around a fallen jockey, which isn't easy to do at any part of the race. But obviously in the beginning part of the race, that was the least potential disaster that could have occurred. And then you look at it and you say, what kind of athlete is Irad Ortiz, and also the entire jockey colony for that matter, but in this specific example, Irad Ortiz, for getting knocked off his horse onto another horse and had I don't know if it was quick twitch reaction of trying to jump back onto his horse because his horse was right next to him, or if it was just, oh my God, what's going on? And he actually had that mental thought process of, I need to get off this horse and onto another. I can certainly understand why people are clamoring for, should this have been a no contest or anything like that? I think that they made the right decision by actually allowing it to stand as is. But I can certainly see some of the arguments as far as, hey, did White Abarrio carry two riders for more than a couple of strides? I don't think so based on the video, but did he have technically, twice the amount of weight for a couple of strides? Maybe. But it was just, there was so much going on in the race, especially in the first, 10 strides, 5 strides, maybe out of the gate, that you had to unpack that it really showed me, okay, as somebody who's been in the business for a long time, the athleticism of these horses and of the riders, all athletes that were involved, in order to avoid, really potential disasters. It sucks for Mindframe because he was the second choice, 2-1, in the race. And, it shows a lot of kind of strategy that was being implemented, by the owners to put a 70-1 shot contrary thinking as the rabbit in there, and really putting Dylan, who also was a good guy, putting Dylan in kind of a really weird position also, where, his horse breaks a little bit slow and he's got a gun anyway. Is basically trying to navigate his way through, a couple of horses before he can get to the front. And then he does gun to the front. And at the half mile pole, he was like 7-8 lengths in front, which was, again, way, way, way too much in the grand scheme of things. But I don't think that he thought he was going to be all alone that far in front, going 46-4 and 111-4 at that point in time. But, some people would say it was a beautiful race to watch because of all the athleticism. Other people would say it was a clusterfuck because just of everything that happened in the race. But, when you get grade 1 horses, especially older horses that have done this before, and it's kind of like this win, there should be an asterisk next to it because not all the horses had the opportunity to compete the way that they should have. Now, sometimes that's racing luck, and sometimes you don't have it and you get boxed in, or the race doesn't set up the way you want, or on the most extreme part, your jockey lands on, is thrown from your mount onto another mount and then tries to jump back on, and everything in between. But I'm thankful that everyone came home safely. I'm thankful that we're going to see all of these horses, as well as some other ones from California that ran this weekend also, together in the Classic. And Joe, it is setting up to be a phenomenal Breeders' Cup Classic this November.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Fierceness was incredible in the Pacific Classic. I was there to watch it. But I want to stay on this just for a little bit. And also, by the way, Junior Alvarado is coming up, and he has a really good observation of this whole incident, especially because he wasn't riding in the race.
Right. So
he was able to look at it from an observer's standpoint, from an impartial observer, and he has a great explanation for what he saw. So stay tuned for that. Don't fast forward. We got a lot more to say before that interview, but it is a good interview. But I want to drill down on the idea of the rabbit and the place of the rabbit in racing history and today. Because, Mike Rapoli made a big stink about this. It really cracked me up. Like the videos he put out where he's like, pray for Irad. And he gives 5-10 seconds talking about Irad and giving an update. And then 2.5 minutes of him bitching about the rabbit. It just really made me laugh.
Right.
But I don't think his point is incorrect in terms of this horse was not entered to win this race. Mm-hmm. He was entered to ensure a fast pace for Sierra Leone. And yes, he was 70-80-1, but he didn't have $0 on him in the win pool. There were plenty of people at the track that day, probably more novice bettors, who figured, hey, he's an 81-1 bomb. He's got some speed. Let's see what happens. And I just feel like they weren't given a fair shake when the horse isn't entered to win. And, yes, it happens sometimes that the rabbit will win the race, but it's almost always on grass. Mm-hmm. It's a different ball game on turf when you get a firm turf and you're able to get away and, they just can't reel you in on a much more tiring surface like dirt. I've never seen an intentional rabbit win a dirt race. I'm sure it's happened before. Mm-hmm. I personally have never seen it. And I just think also in the era of us trying to protect horses, trying to keep horses safe, it's not a great look to have a horse go out with the intention, basically, of losing by 50 fucking lengths. and getting tired and just setting things up for the other horse in the race. At the very least, it should be a coupled entry. I know they're getting rid of coupled entries in New York. I don't know. This is one of those scenarios where he should have been coupled with Sierra Leone. And I don't know. I know there's a long history of rabbits in racing.
Mm-hmm.
I never feel good about it when you have a sacrificial animal in the race. Mm-hmm. And people are betting on that horse conceivably with the idea that the horse is trying to win. And, and it's, forget about the competitive advantage of entering a rabbit. Like, it's not the rest of the field's fault that Sierra Leone has no early speed. So now you have to go after the field two-pronged for a horse who's a plotter and can't get up if there's not a supersonic pace. Forgetting about that part and just how I think it's a little cowardly to do something like that instead of just putting the horses that are supposed to win or trying to win in the gate and seeing who's best. I just don't feel good from a parimutuel standpoint or from a horse safety standpoint that we're still doing this and we're entering horses in races whose objective is to set a fast pace and then probably lose by 50 lengths and get the fuck out of the way for the horse who's supposed to win. I don't feel great about it.
Yeah, I'm going to take a counter position just for the simple sake of argument, Joe. And I'm going to say that, number one, Peter Brandt, in this case, in this example, put up a lot of money to nominate, enter, and start contrary thinking. Even though he owns 100% of that horse, he doesn't own 100% of Sierra Leone. So that was kind of his decision. Number two, I don't think at 70-1, there's a lot of people who are putting money on contrary thinking with the idea that it's gonna win. But number three, and probably the most emphatic point I can make on this, and I don't think it's a great argument. I'm just trying to make an argument because I know you love to argue. So is that we talk about all the time, where are the good horses? Where are the horses? And why are these grade ones and grade twos having 3-4 horse fields, everywhere basically, other than Kentucky Downs? So how do we police it? Do we say, that they aren't allowed to run in the race because it's not an invitational? So it's not like, the racing office has the ability to say the horse isn't good enough. I guess theoretically they could say, that we're not going to accept this entry. But do you do that to the one of the leading owners and the co-leading trainer of Saratoga, and also powerful people in New York? Do you say to them, you can't run this horse in the race because you don't have the intentions of winning? I don't know. It's hard. It would be hard pressed for me to be able to police it when. And where does it go? Like who's the one that ultimately makes the decision? The racing office? I don't know if that's necessarily precedent they want to set in this kind of a scenario. So I understand what you're saying as far as like, if people's intentions aren't to win the race, then they shouldn't enter the horse, whether it's contrary thinking or whether it's because, hey, the racing office isn't charging me anything to enter my horse in the race, so I'm going to run it and get a free meal. For running, which a lot of trainers and owners do, especially on big race days. So we don't want seat fillers, but we also don't want horses in races that are going to compromise the end result, which is pretty much, they didn't come out and say that was their strategy, but you can pretty much guess that was the strategy.
Well, yeah, just look at the way the horse runs. Like, it's very obvious that that's their strategy. But I do take your point that, like, how do you police that? Like, there's no proof looking at the past performances necessarily, although except for the time he ran last time, he ran an 11 buyer and got beat 100 lengths. Say that he didn't have that line in his past performances and he was just a speed horse who ran a 95 buyer last time out. You can't prove that the horse is in the, intuitively, instinctively, that the horse is in the race to set it up for his, much more ballyhooed stablemate. But yeah, so how do you police that? How do you make that determination? It's a tough thing to say from a racing off standpoint or from a steward standpoint. But I go back to my original point that people bet real money on this horse who was not supposed to win the race. He was not entered to win the race. And I don't think it's a great look to have the horse beaten 80 lengths in a grade one.
Absolutely.
And especially when we're supposed to be all about horse safety and that's the number one priority and all this stuff. this horse was sacrificed. He was sacrificed for his stablemate.
Right.
And yeah, like you could say, once he was done, obviously Dylan wrapped up on him, and it wasn't like a dangerous situation where he was still getting pumped on and exerted to the wire. But I don't know. It's never felt right to me. It's a bad look, honestly.
Yeah,
it's never felt right to me, the rabbit thing. And I just think, like so many other things in racing, oh, well, people have done this forever. That's not a fucking good argument.
Not the right
That's
argument.
not a good argument for continuing to do things like this. And I don't know. Like you say, how do we police it? How do we ban this kind of thing? But I know a lot of people are going to say, well, for Mike Rapoli, it's just sour grapes. Like he's entered rabbits before, and he wouldn't have said that if contrary thinking had like missed the break or whatever. But I think he's correct that it's not fair to the betting public, and it's not fair to the horse to continue to take these entries when the horse is not entered and is not trying to win.
Right.